The building behind me, on my right, was completed in 1889. But before then, before North Terrace was paved, before Colonel Light surveyed Adelaide, before free settlers arrived in 1836, before Flinders navigated the coastline, the Kaurna people for 60,000 years call this place home. Uncle Moogie, you don't need to thank us for having you here today. We thank you for having us here today. This afternoon, on the steps of your Parliament, I can affirm that Her Excellency, the Honourable Francis Adamson AC, has signed the proclamation of King Charles III. Too often, in this modern age of rapid news and instant gratification, we can become indifferent to history. As I stand here, truly humbled by the size of this crowd, it strikes me that South Australians are not indifferent to the significance of this moment, nor are they indifferent to the unquestionably historic contribution of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. 70 years ago, in this very place, when Queen Elizabeth herself was proclaimed the sovereign, she was a tender 25 years old. It's hard to imagine how difficult it would have been for such a young adult to mourn the loss of her father while simultaneously taking on one of the most significant roles in the history of civilisation, Queen of the British Empire. Yet this Queen, with her undying sense of duty, dedication and devotion to her people, set about executing her global responsibilities with care, with dignity and with unwavering grace. Little did that 25-year-old woman know that her reign would encompass one of the most substantial periods of change in human history. Not just the 15 British Prime Ministers or the 16 Australian Prime Ministers or the 15 South Australian Premiers, but the changes taking place in the wider Commonwealth and the world around her. The second Elizabethan age took place in an era of constant flux. The rise and fall of communism, cultural revolution, the moon landing, economic booms and crashes of the 80s, 90s and 2000s, the World Wide Web, growing climate change, the novel coronavirus, the generational movements of the Boomers, the Gen Xers, the Ys and the Zs. She was steadfast through 70 years of post-war conflicts, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Falkland War, the Gulf Wars, the Iraq Wars, the war in Afghanistan, the invasion of Ukraine. She led her people through transformative economic, cultural, political and technological revolutions of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. Changes that would render the world of 2022 all but unrecognisable to the one that faced that noble young woman in 1952. And through all of this, the only constant apart from change itself was her. Our sovereign, resolute, steadfast, poised, calm. A lifetime of distinguished service. But we also know that the only thing more enduring than her legacy is her commitment to the traditions of the Crown, today represented through an orderly accession of her heir, a new king, King Charles III. Just as was the case 70 years ago, we don't definitively know what the future holds for our world during the reign of our new monarch. So as South Australians, we gather today to wish our new king well, as he embarks on his journey of elevated service to the people of the Commonwealth. Of course, no different to any long-standing institution that has existed across generations, the record of the Crown is imperfect. But regardless of your colour, creed, origin of birth, or disposition towards monarchism, one must acknowledge the undeniable truth that the Crown has facilitated unparalleled human progress. The Crown today provides order and structure to ensure that the values it represents are materialised to the benefit of the daily lives of all people. Values such as freedom, liberty, justice and human dignity. The Crown is so much more than any one king or any one queen. South Australians, of course, have not only honoured that tradition, but embraced the self-determination provided under the umbrella of the Crown and then infused it with a spirit of progress unlike any others. Just over there, in the red brick bordered building, is Old Parliament House, built in 1843. But inside Parliament House is the chamber. It's a rather quaint little room. It's not particularly grand. You might even say it's a little underwhelming. But there's a humility to it. A humility that is rather profound given the extraordinary events that have taken place in that very room. In 1894, in that room, a new law was passed. A law that would give women the right to vote and run for Parliament. A law that was a first for anywhere in the world ever before. This was a momentous change in human civilisation, a great leap forward that acted as an example that the rest of the world had no choice but to follow. The rest of the world followed South Australia. They followed us. So today, as we celebrate the Crown and the liberal democracy over which it presides, we recommit ourselves to the pursuit of progress for the betterment of all humankind. Just as Her Majesty the Queen accepted her duty and the new King accepts his, we must also accept ours. The Crown and our new sovereign, the King, affords each and every one of us the chance to set our own path, to chart our own course, to determine our own destiny. This is our duty, our responsibility, our opportunity. May we make the most of it, not just for our benefit or the benefit of others, but for the betterment of those that may stand here another 70 years from now, looking back and reflecting on the progress we chose to make for the advancement of all humankind. God save the King.